today's live demo of vPro functions within LabTech. Our objective today is to show you how vPro works within LabTech. We do it live, so you can see exactly what happens and see what the benefits are of being able to do more remotely within your LabTech console. So that's what we'll do today. From our side, you've got two of us. You've got myself. I'm Scott Schaefer. I'm a program manager here at Intel. I've been working on vPro programs for the last 6 years, mostly in the service provider channel. So work with folks like you every day, and very much appreciate your taking a part of your day to be with us to see our live demo. My partner today is Joe Oster. Joe is a senior support engineer here at Intel. He's been working on vPro almost since it launched. He's been doing vPro technology for 8 years. He works with LabTech very closely. He's worked with LabTech both on the product management team and their support team, works with those folks week in and week out, and has been doing so for 2 years. And Joe talks with LabTech users like yourself pretty much every day. So in terms of how vPro works in LabTech, what nuances or issues you might see, Joe's the guy that knows all about it. So he's the best guy to be doing our live demo today. So that's what we'll do. Before we get to the live demo, and by the way, our live demo should take about 10 minutes. Before we get there, I want to cover one tool and one opportunity for you all. I want to make sure that you're aware of. The tool I want to cover is called the LabTech vPro Navigator. This is simply an online user's guide to vPro within LabTech, but there's a couple things about it that we think make it extremely useful. The first is that this was co-developed by Joe Oster and LabTech. So it's very, very detailed and specific and well-honed for LabTech users. It'll show you how to discover vPro PCs within LabTech, how to provision them using LabTech, and then obviously how to manage them using LabTech. The difference, though, is how the material is arranged. It's arranged in such a way that you can get what you need very, very quickly without having to leaf through a 100-page PDF to find out what you need. It's very step-by-step, very explicit. There's a lot of screen captures from LabTech screens involved, and we think it's everything you need and nothing you don't. So that's a tool that we want to make sure that you know is available. It should be your Bible in terms of using vPro functions within LabTech. The URL for this tool is at the bottom of this screen, and if you don't want to write the whole thing down, if you just go to msp.intel.com, which is Intel's service provider website, you can navigate very easily to the LabTech vPro Navigator. So I want you to look at that tool and use it. One other cool thing about it is at the bottom of every page in the Navigator, there's an email link, and that comes directly to us, to my desk and Joe's desk. So it's really a concierge level of support for LabTech users of vPro functions. So that's the tool I wanted to tell you about. There's a program opportunity that I want to tell you about briefly. It's the LabTech vPro deployment program. We've been doing this with LabTech jointly for about the last 3 years. And this is a program where we basically take you step by step and personally through your first deployment of vPro-based PCs at customers. It's very step-by-step. Joe and I are the key players in this program. It helps you do those first deployments in the most efficient manner possible. If you qualify for this program and you complete it in a timely manner, we'll send you a free vPro-based laptop. So there's a pretty nice incentive on the program. If you're interested in this program, how do you get involved? You simply email us. Here's the email address, activation@intelmsp.com. If you send me an email on that address and just say, hey, I'm interested in the LabTech vPro deployment program, we'll get back in touch with you and tell you details and timing for the program. It's about a 4-week program where we meet once a week. It's very efficient, and you get to hear from some of your colleagues in the channel. And we think it's, people have had a pretty good experience with it, and that's why we've been doing it for a long time. So that's what to do if you're interested in it. To qualify for it, you do need to have at least 500 PCs under management with your LabTech console, and you need to have 2 customers who have at least one vPro-based PC deployed, because everything we do everything that you do in this program, you do on actual customer PCs in the field. So you'll need at least 2 PCs at 2 customers to do it. So that's the program. Any questions on that, let us know. More than happy to answer them. So the last thing I'll say is vPro technology in a very small nutshell. What is it? We find that everybody's heard of vPro. Not everybody understands what it is. So very briefly, and Joe's going to show you all this in living color in about 60 seconds. It's a hardware-based technology. It is not software. It's in the PC. It's not just the processor, and that is why you can't add vPro to a PC that does not have it. vPro involves the processor, the network connection, the chipset, and the firmware in the PC. So it needs to be a vPro-based PC from the get-go. All major manufacturers have many models that are available with vPro, and that list of models, both current and historic, is on our msp.intel.com website. This is the URL, but if you go to msp.intel.com, you can navigate to it using the nav bar at the top. So that's what it is, the nature of the beast. It's hardware. What it does is it lets you do more remotely within LabTech. The whole point of vPro is to make what you do more efficient, and the primary way we do that is to let you do more things remotely than you can do without it. So, and the beautiful thing is everything you're going to do with it, you do in LabTech. You don't have to leave your management console to do it. There's really 2 things it does: remote power up and down, and a KVM remote control. It is hardware-based. There's reasons why these are better than a Wacom LAN and a software-based KVM. Joe's going to show you that in just a minute. And as I said, the whole point is to help you do things more quickly. Both repairs and normal maintenance tasks will go more quickly when you can do them when you want to do them, when it's convenient for you or convenient for your customer. And by doing more remotely, you reduce the number of desk side visits and truck rolls that you have to do. So that's what it is and why we think it's a good thing. And now, without further ado, I'm going to pitch this over to Joe, give him control of the screen so you can see his console, and Joe will give you the live demo. So, Joe, you have got control, and we can see your screen.
You can see my screen. Okay,
yeah,
good
to go.
First thing to talk about is I do want to reiterate the whole Intel vPro Navigator. It is msp.intel.com. And you go there, you can hit the link at the top of the page and get to the Navigator pages. This is very, very important. Any kind of question that can come up is actually going to be covered in your FAQs. These are all questions that users such as yourself have come up with over the last 2 years. I've included lots of good information there. So this is really a valuable resource. The other nice thing is this will take you through all the steps that are required for working with vPro and LabTech. So just log into this site, go through the left-hand tabs and the navigation menu up here at the top, and it'll walk you through it step by step. If there is any questions, you think that there should be a change or something, I can always get that fixed as well. So please, if you do have a question, get a hold of us at the email here at the bottom of the Navigator page. Everything I show you today will be covered in the Navigator, so we won't go over the Navigator any further. So first off, what does vPro do for me? That's going to be your main question. Well, vPro is a remote management technology that tech will leverage. So what will happen is you will open your console, and if you don't have this icon already, chances are you have not downloaded the plugin or enabled the plugin. So make sure you go to the marketplace to download the plugin and then enable it within your environment. So when we open up this tab, you're going to get this nice screen. It's going to give us a lot of information here. But what you're going to find in your situation is the first time you open this, you're going to get a screen such as this showing. And this is the first thing you want to do. When you first get started, I would recommend not checking the automatically provision and configure, but then choose whatever password you want for whatever your policies in your network. Once you get the idea of what's going on with configuration and whatnot, then I would recommend doing the automatic provisioning. That way, whatever time you put down here at the bottom, it will do it for you. You don't have to do it in a manual process. But for start out, don't check this. And I would probably go with random password by location or by client. Those would be my recommendations. But all right, so I'm just going to hit continue because I don't want to change anything. So you get this screen. A lot of your fields will not be populated because you haven't actually ran any scans. When you do a feature scan, basically you can click on a line here and then click Scan Now. And what that'll do is it'll go out, drop an executable on the remote client, do an inventory, and look at the firmware, grab some data, bring it back, and it'll be parsed and will provide this data for us. So as you can see in my environment, we have a lot of trues, but we do have one guy here. This is actually an AMT device. However, the drivers have been disabled to show errors, just so you know. The 6230 is the device we're going to be playing with today. From this here, we can tell it's been enabled. You can tell it's in post-provision state, which means it is configured. And there's a few other bits and pieces. But from here, we can also do a right-click and go down here, and you can do a feature scan as well. And if the system was off, you would be able to turn it on. In fact, this system is on. The agent is out of sync at the moment, and that's on purpose, just to show that even though you can't get to it by the agent, we still can get to it. So we're just going to go and double-click this guy. It'll bring up the agent window, and this is what you're going to see when you open up a client. Now, this client here has been scanned. It has all the checks, which means everything is good to go. If it has some errors, it'll be some yellow diamonds or a few other icons here, and that'll give you some indication of some sort of problem. I can show you an example of that by going to this guy here, and you'll see that it has some issues. So you have this circle that says it's not AMT, and you have this yellow pingable. You know, it has issues. You got to figure out why. Well, I can tell you why, because it's not set up to be vPro right now. So we'll go ahead and close that guy. I must have closed it. So what can I do with vPro from this point of view? Well, the feature scan is the simplest thing. When you do a feature scan, it actually caches all that data. It only displays some of the bits and pieces. These are the most likely candidates for any kind of testing for debug if there's some sort of issue. But occasionally you may need to get some additional data or detail. You can find out model or manufacturer, whatever. It is there. Like I said, 98% of all your problems are probably solved with these here, but you never know. It is just nice to have that information. What we can do from there, we can actually use our power commands. Like I said, currently our power state is agent-based, and this is actually wrong because it is currently on, and I'll show that to you in just a moment. What we can do, though, is we can actually access the web UI. This just launched my IE. I can click log on, and then I can actually go to what's called the web UI. The web UI is a web page that is provided by the firmware, so I am actually talking directly to the firmware. If I wanted to, I can pull all sorts of information about this system directly from the firmware. I could actually do remote control if I wanted to. I could do a power off or reset. I'm not going to do that because it doesn't actually show anything on this side. I'll show that to you more when I get to the KVM. But there's other things you can do if you wanted to set up a profile for Wi-Fi so that your AMT Wi-Fi will work. You could do that through this avenue. So that is that. So the other thing we can do is we can do KVM. This is what most everybody wants anyways. So here it is. This is just your normal standard KVM to a point. The point here I want to make is this is actually to the firmware. So this is hardware related. This isn't OS based. So if you have like a OS that has crashed, it's blue screen, it's locked up from a virus, whatever, this isn't going to have an issue connecting because you're connecting to the firmware and not to the OS that's hosted. So I'll be able to come in here and look at what that blue screen code is or get an idea what the user's seeing without having to worry about this just jammed up system. From this point, I could actually go in here and select Tools, Power Control, do a power reset, and I can actually reset the system, and it'll refresh here in a second, and you'll see it actually go through post. That's a nice feature because you can, you're sitting there, you just go in and reboot it. Now, one thing to always keep in mind is that anything below AMT9, when you do a power reset or a power down, it's a hard shutdown, so you can occasionally get errors, and will actually want to do a scan disk or something along those lines. I usually recommend doing agent-based if you can, but if you can't, when you got a blue screen, hey, use it. That's what it's there for. Excuse me. So within this tool, we also have this check, this is here item, and we're just going to click on it and it's going to check it. And what that's going to do is it's going to set the parameter for boot to BIOS. I can actually do a power reset at this point. And what's really cool about this is if you have a system that you can't get to boot because somebody left a thumb drive in and it's trying to boot to a non-operating system thumb drive and it's stuck, well, I can go in here, change the boot order, and eliminate that issue. So that's a pretty nice reason to have this. One thing about our tool, though, you do want to undo the checkbox so every time you do a power command, it doesn't boot to the BIOS. So I'm going to do another power reset, and it'll reboot to the BIOS, or on the OS rather. All right. So I always like to get it back to the login screen to eliminate any kind of boot issues. So give me a second. The other feature we have is ID redirect. Basically what we're going to do is take your CD-ROM and port that channel out to the network, and we will be going to a file share somewhere and download an ISO directly. So we can do that fairly simple by just do this boot to IDER. We're going to browse for the image, and I am going to select my image of choice. And so in this case, it's a remote drive mount ISO. This is actually a small Linux ISO that's 6 or 7 megs in size. It downloads fairly fast, and what happens is I can actually it actually creates an iSCSI interface for me to use the iSCSI initiator, and so I can actually do a remote drive mount, just like as if it was in a docking station next to me. I'll have full access to that drive using this Linux solution. Really slick, really nice, and voila, the system has now downloaded it. Now it's going to be extracting it here in a couple seconds, the actual ISO. So there it's extracting. And here in a second, we'll actually get into the actual screen. All right, so here I am. I could just type this into my command line on my local computer and make my connection to the remote device, and then I just manage it as if it was a USB drive. control. We always want to enter our IDER sessions, otherwise it will keep that connection going even though you close your KVM window, and then on subsequent reboots it's going to continue trying to boot out the IDE channel. It will eventually reset itself, but for this exercise we always want to do this. So we do a power reset. All right, so we're going to go ahead and exit this. So what else can we do? Well, let's get back to the basics now. With vPro, you have to configure vPro because when it comes from the factory, it comes in as a unconfigured device. So it acts dumb. It doesn't know how to communicate on the network. So what you have to do is actually tell it, okay, you're DHCP static or you're DHCP enabled. Here's your IP addresses. Here's a password and your host name. Those are the three basic things that it has to actually tell you. So how do I do that? Well, there's two methodologies. You can. The first one is right through the console here. We can actually do that through this button here. If it was an unconfigured device, it would actually say provision. In this case, it says unprovisioned because it knows it's provision. So the second methodology is a more secure because they figure on the what's called host-based provisioning. Basically, you're sending down an executable, running it on the local client. It's considered a non-secure method because there's no controls. So they have a second system, which is certificate-based, and that can be done through physical access. You actually go in and into the MEBX and do it. You do a USB key, which contains the certificate. Or number three, you can use a configuration server. All those will put them into admin control mode, where the original one I was talking about was host-based configuration, puts into client control mode. The main difference between the two from a LabTech point of view is that the client control mode has what's called user consent. User consent is a sprite that will pop up on the client screen, and on the client screen you'll get a 6-digit code. You'll put that into your window, into your KVM window, and you put that code in, and then you're in like Flint. Admin control mode will eliminate that. So how do I go into the MEBX? The MEBX is a physical, you go into that physically. That's the only way. You can't do it through KVM or VNC or any other remote management type thing. You'll actually, during the boot, you'll hit like F12 to get into the one-time boot menu. It's different on some keyboards, F12. And then it should tell you Control P or an F6, something along those lines. You'll have to read the screen depending on the OEM as to how they access it. And that'll get you into there. The default password is admin. So you go in, type admin, and then it'll ask you to change it. And then from then on, if you ever need to access it, whether it's configured or unconfigured, you'll need to know the new password because you have to change it in order to get in. So that basically concludes my demonstration for today. If there's any questions, please let me know.
Thanks, Joe. Let me take it back to wrap up with a couple of quick things. Just to remind you guys of the tool and the program. In terms of the key reference tool, we talked about the LabTech vPro Navigator. It follows the flow and covers everything that Joe just showed you. So it's really your key tool to understand very efficiently how do I use vPro within LabTech. And as Joe mentioned, at the bottom of every page in the Navigator is an email link that goes direct to him. So take advantage of the Navigator. And my other reminder is regarding our LabTech vPro deployment program. This is the program where if you have at least 500 PCs under management, we'll walk you through step-by-step your first deployments, and you can qualify for a free vPro-based system. So if you're interested in that, let us know at activation@intelmsp.com. So thanks, everyone, for taking the time. We really appreciate you giving us a part of your day to show you vPro within LabTech, and we look forward to answering any questions that you have. Thanks again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.